This is From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Each week, Janice shares her wisdom to enlighten, educate, and advance the culture in America today. Janice Pons is a mother, author, and free thinker, and your host for our podcast this evening. Now let's join your host, Janice Pons.
Greetings, greetings, greetings. Come on in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Janice Pons. I am the host on this podcast, From Destruction to Dignity, Clinical Perspective, Spiritual Truths. Tonight, we're going to continue our journey as we the people. We have been focused on a very specific path related to gaining a clearer understanding regarding how our nation is structured and how it is supposed to work. We are interested in the flow of our great nation. This flag right behind me is a great symbol connected to our amazing nation. This seal is to remind us of the importance of praying for the president of this nation, the People's House, the White House. I'm continuing to pray for the 265,900,000 Americans that we realized in 2024 were living paycheck to paycheck and could barely make ends meet. That equated to about 78% of working Americans. Leading up to the election in November of 2024, it was revealed that 79% of Americans felt the country was going in the wrong direction. The majority of the citizens spoke loud and clear regarding their position of what is important in this nation as they issued a mandate, loud and clear. So we had an election. We, the people, spoke loud and clear on what is really important in light of all the dynamics being presented to us. I have repeatedly asked on this podcast, on this venue, who needs to be the leader of America? What is at stake? Does it matter who is in the White House? Well, that determination has been made according to the vote. There are a lot of dynamics that are still being presented to us. But everything that we're dealing with in this nation connects to our Constitution and how it influences how we operate and what we adhere to as we the people. So let's examine some dynamics together. In the framework of the Constitution, let's look at the preamble. The preamble sets the stage for the Constitution. It clearly communicates the intentions of the framers and the purpose of the document. The preamble is an introduction to the highest law of the land. It's not the law. The preamble is not the law. It does not define government powers or individual rights. Now, established justice is the first of 5 objectives outlined in the 52-word paragraph that the framers drafted in 6 weeks during the hot Philadelphia summer of 1787. The 13 colonies were there, becoming 13 states. The nation was growing as it was. All the dynamics that led up to it. There were things that were wrong, but we were where we were. And they found a way to agree on the following basic principles to organize this nation as it had developed into being. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. The United States federal government that we live under and that we are jurisdicted by is divided into 3 branches. Legislative, which makes the laws; executive, enforces the laws; judicial, interprets the laws. That's how it is in America. That's what it developed into. The U.S. Constitution establishes 3 branches. That Constitution prevents any one branch from becoming too powerful. It creates a system of checks and balances. It ensures the government is effective and citizens' rights are protected. We've been talking about citizens' rights. Do you know when yours are violated? Each branch has its own powers and responsibilities, but they also work with each other. The branches are legislative, as I said. That includes Congress, which is made up of the Senate and the House of Representatives. That's America. I love going to the Capitol. Something happens to me when I walk in the building. Then we have the Senate, 100 members, 2 from each state. We have the House of Representatives, 435 voting members, plus 5 delegates and 1 resident commissioner. Then we have the executive branch of our government. That's the president. And included in that are federal agencies, departments, committees, and other groups. He has a cabinet. Then, in our great nation, we have the judicial branch, which is the Supreme Court and other federal courts, lower courts in each state, appellate courts, so forth and so on. The Supreme Court currently has 9 justices who interpret laws according to what? The law of the land, the Constitution. That's America. Like it or leave it. And some people are choosing to leave. God bless them. They have that right. The main headquarters for all 3 branches are in Washington, D.C. Love to go to Washington, D.C. I just do. The Constitution of the United States divides the federal government into those 3 branches, legislative, executive, and judicial. This ensures that no individual or group will have too much power. Wow, that in itself is thought-provoking to me, as I and all of us have watched what has unfolded right before our eyes in so many ways, so many different angles. So tonight, my fellow Americans and my brothers and sisters, we're going to dissect where we may be headed from the branch of our government, which is the executive branch. That's the president, whose job is to enforce the laws, not ignore them, not change them, not override them, but to enforce the laws. The majority of Americans spoke loud and clear in the election on November 5th that they wanted change. It was a mandate. We want change. Tonight, we're going to examine an executive mandate for this nation. Now, an executive mandate for the Constitutional Republic of the United States of America is our framework. But I want to frame something about what we're going to look at. Now, the question is, and we were told this, we're going to have a peaceful transfer of power. That's what the Biden administration was saying. We're going to have a peaceful transfer of power. I'm going to say something. It's going to be strong because, see, I've got to have my evidence to back it up. I've got to have my evidence to back up what I'm going to say. And my clinical mind always goes as evidenced by what? And I'm going to propose and say this. There has been no peaceful transfer of power. It's not in the souls of people that exhibit wicked behavior. Maybe some people will understand what we have been trying to tell our fellow Americans all along. They lied to us when they talked about a peaceful transfer of power after the election. They never had a peaceful transfer of power during Trump's first term in office. When Donald Trump was in office the first time, it was never done. At that time, he dealt with lawfare from the word go. Attack through laws. That's been the focus that he's had to battle. Wiretap as evidenced by what, Janice? Why are you saying that? You're just saying words. Well, let's look at that as evidenced by. Wiretapping that was done on him. Spying on him. Made up legal charges. Hoaxes. The Russian hoax, which we spent millions of dollars on. And The conclusion was, oh, excuse me, there was no Russian hoax. Made up, baseless accusations. The list is endless. All this occurred while they broke law after law. The violations upon violations, they were endless. Then, to add insult to injury, they tried to totally take him out. That's wickedness to the core. These types of dynamics make up what I call people making a deal with the devil. Now, as they continually sell us out, these things do not protect us as a nation. It's selling us out. It's not acting in the best interest of we the people. So, subsequently, what did we have unfold? Joe Biden, related to this war in Ukraine, he willfully set the tone for what would be outright escalation that could easily turn into World War III. How? As evidenced by what? By launching specific direct attacks in Russia. With Biden willfully escalating this situation, he escalated it. Putin began to threaten nuclear war. This has never happened before, not like that. With us firing specific types of missiles into Russia. Oh yeah, that's new. The agenda of the Democratic Party, these types of things that we've seen unfold, it's not for we the people. It never was. And based upon what we see unfolding, God let it change. But it looks like it never will be, never. I've been telling people that, and I've been saying this, and people are like, what she keep talking about that for? They have been more focused on Agenda 2030 as they have lied to us as a nation, especially Black Americans. I'm going to tell you about settings that I was in. I've talked about that before. I've been in a quote-unquote Black church where they were handing out a quote-unquote Black newspaper at the end of the service, and they were educating us as Black Americans about Agenda 2030, and what they had in there was a lie. It was not true. And then on the next page, there was an ad from the Harris campaign trying to convince us that Trump wanted to destroy Black America with Project 2025. I read it with my own eyes. So Kamala lied to us all along, as she called it Trump's Project 2025 during a whole campaign. I went on her website. It was there. It's a lie from the pit of hell. All of this chaos is a part of the orchestrated Agenda 2030, which Obama yoked us to in 2015. They don't want us thriving as a sovereign nation with a constitution and a powerful leader that has backbone. They want us under the total control of the United Nations and the World Health Organization with no constitutional rights, that has the most diabolical agenda at its core for global control. That's Agenda 2030. Sounds good on paper, but you read the intricacies thereof, you're going to see this is not good for us as a nation. We have to unite like never before, my fellow Americans, my brothers and sisters, as we the people, to keep them from succeeding with this particular agenda. Listen, there's a lot at stake. Let me keep going. President-elect Donald Trump has laid out an ambitious agenda that he has promised will go into effect January 20th, 2025, the day that he will be sworn into office in his second term. While some of his policy proposals, such as cutting corporate taxes, will require assistance from Congress in the form of passing new legislation that could take months to complete, others will simply require the stroke of a pen. Here's a rundown of the policies he hopes to begin pursuing on day one. This is worth our attention. This is what he said. He wants to have an executive order banning federal funding of gender-affirming health care. Trump repeatedly attacked Harris during the campaign over her support of transgender rights. He also promised to immediately sign an executive order that would ban federal funding of gender-affirming care. He was going to ban federal funding of it. He's not saying you can't get it, but federal funding of gender-affirming care. In other words, we the people pay for it. So he promised to immediately sign an executive order that would ban federal funding, our taxpayer dollars, federally funding gender-affirming care deemed necessary through programs and agencies like Medicare, the Veterans Health Administration, the Department of Defense, TRICARE, and the state children's health care insurance program. State children's health insurance program. Children. Listen, it's all about the children. If we forget about the children, we got a problem in America. And we are so far off track, it is like nothing that I ever could have imagined in my parental mind, in my clinical mind, in my godly mind, in terms of what's going on with these children. This is what he said. This is what Donald Trump said. On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on gender-affirming care, which is ridiculous. I will sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age, Trump said in a video posted to social media. I will then ask Congress to permanently stop federal taxpayer dollars that's coming out of my check, that's coming out of our checks, from being used to promote or pay for these procedures, and pass a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. It's about the children. He also said that he would support allowing victims to sue doctors who have performed transgender procedures on who? Children. He will also ask Congress to pass a bill that mandates that the only genders the federal government will recognize are those assigned at birth. What else is he going to address right away? This is the plan. Immigration and mass deportation of immigrants. Let me stop right there. It's about illegal immigrants. Asylum seekers who come in the right way, come in. But it's under Kamala Harris being the border czar, that was totally ignored. And we ended up with illegal immigrants who were convicted, meaning they pled guilty, or a judge and a jury found them guilty of homicide, kidnapping, and sexual assault. Never before in this nation have we, never before have we dealt with that. Kamala allowed that in this nation. I said hold up because I really want us to get what's going on here. This dynamic has never been presented in our nation, and that's what Trump is going to come after real hard in the beginning. So people, like they've been saying, well, it's going to cost money to do that. How much money is it costing us to bring them in and take care of them? Paying for health care, housing, food, child daycare for these criminals and others illegally. The first ones that will be focused on are the criminals who have been convicted of the things that I've already named. Why were they allowed in our nation in the first place? For starters, Trump plans to reinstate the border policies he enacted during his first term, which were ended under Biden, such as remain in Mexico, which requires asylum seekers to wait in that country as their cases are being adjudicated by U.S. judges. All of the secure border policies that we have in place with President Trump, he can simply flip the switch and put those back in place just like they were before. They didn't even need an act of Congress. Trump will look to deport undocumented immigrants who have committed crimes. That's the first order of business. We have to have safety. They'll be targeted arrests, says Tom Homan. He was a former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement and a candidate to lead Trump's deportation effort. We'll know who we're going to arrest, he said, where we're most likely to find them based on numerous investigative processes here in Oklahoma. Governor Stitt has called it Operation, oh God, it escaped me the word. It'll come to me. It has a specific name. Operation, not deportation, not Operation Deportation. It'll come back to me. But Guardian. Operation Guardian. It's a guardian. We got to guard over our nation, our safety as Oklahomans, as Americans. Trump has also indicated that he is prepared to utilize the National Guard and perhaps even the U.S. military to carry out this effort. Now listen, somebody said, what is he going to use the military for? Their number one job is to protect us from all enemies, both foreign and what? Domestic. During the campaign, J.D. Vance, now Vice President-elect, said that the new Trump administration would look to deport roughly 1 million annually. Is doable. What's another area he's going to focus on? Tariffs, big and small. He ran in 2024 on the promise that he would implement sweeping tariffs on foreign imports in an effort to spur U.S. manufacturing and to force other countries to change their policies. I'm just going to say this, and I've said it before, and I'll say it again because it worked. In 2019, when they had all these people coming across the border, he told Mexico's president at that time, he said, you will take care of that on this illegal immigration on that side of the border, or I'm putting tariffs on the cars. In less than 3 weeks, there were 15,000 Mexican troops on their side of the border taking care of it. Illegal immigration went down at least 60%. That's leadership with backbone. This is what Trump said. He said, I think that tariffs do need to be used to get counterparties back to the table, especially China, which is not living up to all of the agreements they made. Steve Mnuchin said that, who served as the Treasury Secretary under Trump's first term. And this is what Trump's heart is. That's his right as our leader to think that way. And that's what he shared. And he shared it with Mnuchin. Once he's sworn in, Trump will largely have a free hand to levy tariffs as he sees fit, since Congress has passed laws granting him the power to do so in response to a vaguely denied international emergency. People vaguely define it. People want to deny it. Yeah, they want to deny it. It's no emergency. Why we got to do that? Baby, we're not safe. Where Trump will slap new tariffs and how extensive those will be remains to be seen. But in the waning days of the campaign, he told Mexico, look, he threatened them with tariffs unless it agreed to curb the flow of migrants into the U.S. or halt shipments of cars from China. The man's got power and he's going to make things happen. He did before. But you know why a lot of people don't know it? Because they wouldn't talk about it on the news, the mainstream media. We should never forget what happened when he did this before in Mexico in 2019. I already told you. Had 15,000 Mexican troops on their side of the border, manning the entire process. Would that save us some money? Trump was referring to Mexico's new president, Claudia Sheinbaum. I'm going to inform her, and he already did, on day one or sooner, and he already did this sooner, that if they don't stop this onslaught of criminals and drugs coming into our country, I'm going to immediately impose a 25% tariff on everything they send into the United States. Once he won, he did an initial call. He had an initial call with her where she was congratulating him. And you know what happened? She stopped a caravan that was headed to our border. Leadership matters. Economists warn that across-the-board tariffs could spark a trade war, cause prices on consumer goods to skyrocket, and lead to the return of crippling inflation. We have to pray and see how this all unfolds. Then what else is he going to do? Drill, baby, drill. Trump promised during the campaign to expand U.S. oil drilling on day one of his administration. In practical terms, he will certainly prioritize expediting permits to expand oil drilling in anticipation of his election victory. He's already drafted that. Before the election even happened, he drafted detailed plans for rolling back all of Biden's administrative climate rules. According to Trump, we're going to drill, baby, drill. And I will terminate the Green New Scam, he called it, and will cut your energy prices in half within 1 year. That's his goal, to cut our energy prices in half. That'll put more money in people's pockets. He is passionately opposed to continuing any federal regulations put in place to address climate change, including the Inflation Reduction Act. Trump has promised to end all federal incentives to encourage the adoption of electric vehicles, and he has also pledged to do away with Biden-era, ERA, Biden-era fuel efficiency standards. He's also vowed to sign an executive order on day one of his administration halting offshore wind projects, a potential major source of cleaner energy. And he's pledged to once again withdraw the United States from the Paris Climate Agreement, which seeks to limit global temperature rise by cutting greenhouse gas emissions. We're just talking about an executive mandate. Then a deal between Ukraine and Russia. We'll see how that unfolds. At a town hall event, Trump was very clear. He said that he could end the war in Ukraine in 24 hours. Now, what did Biden do? He's escalated it. Everything remains to be seen. One of his priorities is on bringing Ukraine and Russia to the negotiating table to end that war. He's tired of seeing people die. Both Trump and Vance have been harsh critics of the Biden and Harris administration's funding for Ukraine to help it defend itself following Russia's invasion. The Biden White House is now, we'll see where we go with this. So we're going to see, because they're going to pull out all kind of shenanigans. They're already doing it. Talking about peaceful transfer of power. Let's keep our seatbelts on. And let's pray like never before. Pray without ceasing. We're in spiritual warfare, guys. You got to know it. Leading up to the election and definitely now. The Biden-Harris White House, they're rushing to get more than $6 billion in allocated military aid prior to Trump returning in power. Now listen, they're going to try. I know. I've seen 13 different presidents. I've watched what the Democrats have done. I used to be a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat. I know how they operate. I know the mindset. I used to be one. And now I'm a proud American, a Christian conservative constitutionalist. They're going to fight this tooth and nail. They want to keep him from getting in power. We'll see. They want to give more of our taxpayer dollars, billions and billions of dollars over there and elsewhere. Most experts believe that Trump will cut off further U.S. military aid for Ukraine. We'll see. Trump has stated that he believes Ukraine should have been prepared to have given up more in negotiations with Russia to avert a war, claiming that if he were president, Russian President Vladimir Putin would have never invaded in the first place. I agree. Now, we've got North Korea. They got troops over there. He had a relationship with North Korea and with Putin. And none of this had unfolded. Whether Trump is able to quickly negotiate peace in Ukraine and what those terms may include, it remains to be seen. But it's clear that U.S. policy on the war is going to change on January 20th. And we pray that President Trump is able to carry out what God has put on his heart to do with success. Now, new sanctions on Iran. Let's talk about that. Picking up where he left off, Trump is poised to quickly impose new U.S. sanctions on Iran in an effort to influence its funding of Hezbollah and ambitions of producing nuclear weapons. Remember when the Harris-Biden administration unfroze $6 billion to them, and within weeks, in October of 2023, you had Hezbollah, terrorists, people, those folks coming in on parachutes, attacking Israel. Yeah. Reportedly, Trump would issue very tough sanctions on the Iranian regime so we can stop the chaos in the Middle East. Yet, tough sanctions against Tehran imposed by Trump in 2019 didn't result in the desired goal of Iran's abandoning its nuclear program. And they have advanced on that majorly. They have hypersonic missiles that we don't even have. So does Russia, so does China, so does Iran. New sanctions would not require congressional approval and therefore could be another item on the day one checklist. All of these dynamics have contributed to many Americans experiencing fear. Fear is real, and it warrants attention and our support for our fellow Americans. Yes, it does. There are people who say they are terrified. They said they're scared of Trump. And they're afraid of what he will do to them as Americans. Wow. I respectfully submit that things such as text that certain groups have received have nothing to do with Trump whatsoever. Conversely, I propose that those actions fit right in with the classic playbook of the types of things done by the socialist Marxist tactics. They have tactics. It's a playbook. In my opinion, I believe these tactics were perpetrated by the same types of people who told FEMA workers to ignore and not provide help to residents of homes that had a Trump sign on their property subsequent to the devastating hurricane. Now the supervisor that gave that directive and sent out that email, that text to the FEMA workers, she said she got it up line. From who? Those in charge. From a clinical perspective, we're going to examine and think about the issue of fear. Fear, which is very, very relevant for many. People are scared. And sometimes it's real. It's real to them. Let's look at fear. I'm not afraid. I am not. The Bible says to me as a Christian that God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. That's what it says. Fear is real. And are there realistic ways to overcome it? Under the structure of a therapeutic process, you know I'm going to promote that therapeutic process and support groups. If you need a therapist, you can go to janicepons.com and go to the resource page, and it will connect you to find a therapist in your area. There have been people that have done that, and their lives have been totally turned around. They sent me messages thanking me. It's just a resource there for you. I've done the research. It's already there. You can call your insurance company. You can call your mental health, local mental health, community centers. There is help. Fear is crippling for some people. Because it's so real, let's take a realistic way of just thinking about some things, my fellow Americans and my brothers and sisters. Under the structure of a therapeutic process, are there some benefits from the following? I'm just talking out loud and asking questions. Some people can benefit from something called exposure therapy. We're just talking about things that are available for people in our nation that they may want to consider. Under a therapeutic process, gradually exposing oneself to the thing that a person may be afraid of, they can learn how to cope with that fear. This can be done by starting with easier situations and working one's way up to more difficult ones. These emotions and thoughts have to be processed. You have to name. You have to explain. You process and you metabolize strategies, skills, and tools for wellness and recovery and stability. That's a therapeutic process. Could it be that our fellow Americans and people could benefit from relaxation techniques? We're deep breathing, dropping your shoulders, not being so intense. Right here, this is called the stress triangle. We carry it right up in there. Rotate your shoulders. You know, I'm going to put a disclaimer there. You might have physical challenges where you can't do that, but you got to discover how you can learn to use relaxation techniques. Breathing works for me. Deep breathing. Rotating my shoulders works for me. Or imagining myself in a relaxing place. I'll put on a YouTube video of ocean waves and just hearing it and visualizing myself being there. It relaxes me. You can also try complementary therapies like massages. Jen Buchanan, the body mechanic, that's my massage therapist. Oh my God. Let that woman's anointed hands get on my body for a massage. It's amazing. Meditating, just getting quiet. And people say, don't be doing that meditation. Y'all need to stop that silliness. Meditating is just focusing on something. And you got to find your mantra. And I talked about that. My mantra is, Father, I receive your peace that passes all understanding as I do my deep breathing. I focus on the word of God. You got to find out what works for you. I'm not going to push my mantra on you. Find out what works for you. Learning how to talk about it, putting a language to that fear, and sharing your fears can make it less scary. Yes, 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 yes. Take care of yourself. Living a healthier lifestyle can be helpful for your mental well-being. We're talking about fear. We're just talking out loud tonight. And all these mandates and all these dynamics going on in our nation. Challenge unhelpful thoughts. These thoughts are not helpful. Try not to get caught up in must or should thoughts. Reward yourself. Give yourself, what happens when Janice gives herself a treat when I achieve something despite of being afraid? I did it afraid. When I go for a walk, what happens? I take in natural beauty. It helps to relieve these symptoms of tension, anxiety, fear. The physical activity of walking or jogging can also switch me, if I'm having it, from irrational, fearful thoughts to clearer thinking. You can also consider talking to a therapist to work through these anxieties or fears. You gotta fight through fears. You fight through it. I've learned to fight. Everyone has fears. They can be very common. People fear spiders, heights, needles, small places. Others are very unique. They're fearful of day-to-day living. These things have to be worked out through a therapeutic process. Some of this stuff has got to be dissected. It's connected to other things that people were traumatized with that they have not put a language with. They've not connected the dots. Whenever or whatever it is that makes you feel afraid, there are ways to do it. Taking a time out. We're just talking out loud because fear is real. Taking a time out is difficult to think clearly when you feel scared or anxious. If you take a time out to physically calm down, it can help. Try to get away from what's upsetting you for about 15 minutes. Go walk. I'll get up from my desk at work. I'll tell my sister, listen, I'm going out and walking the circle, walking around the block, walking in the circle, getting a warm cup of tea, taking a hot bath, taking a shower. We're talking about breaking it. We're talking about doing something different. Do deep breathing. Drink a glass of water. Yeah. Flush your system. Getting more, hydrating yourself. Watch a funny video. Breathe through the panic. I have backed people out of full-blown panic attacks breathing through it. If you start to get faster heartbeat, sweaty palms, fighting through it, calming yourself, breathing deeply. Place the palm of your hands on your stomach. Massaging the palm of hand. This is called the palace of anxiety. It's a pressure point. By putting that pressure there and deep breathing, it helps a lot. I do it all the time. The aim is to get your mind away from the panic. These are, we're talking about facing these things and looking to strategies, skills, and tools. These are things that I do. I've learned to master these things. Yeah, I used to be scared all the time growing up in Jim Crow and the KKK driving through the neighborhood. Avoiding fears only makes them worse, but gradually exposing yourself to the thing that you're scared of can help you maintain control and overcome the fear. If you face your fear, you might find that it isn't as scary as you thought it might be. Remember, this is so important. Anxiety within itself is not harmful. It's not going to hurt you. You're anxious, but anxiety and fear can feel overwhelming. You can worry. You may worry that the signs of anxiety and panic, they're going to take you out, but it's not going to harm you, but you work through it. We learn to work through it. These concerns can make anxiety and fear worse. So it's important to remember that your body's response to fear, which is very real, more real now for some people than others, is normal. Challenge those thoughts. It can sometimes help to just you go there. So, wait a minute, stop. Wait a minute, what is this real? You're scared of getting trapped. You got to work through it. You have to wait a minute. You got it's called reality testing. Wait a minute, is anybody coming to get me right now? In these texts that were telling black people that somebody's gonna come and pick you up in a white van and take you to a plantation to pick cotton. Come on. Let me tell you, that's a playbook tactic. And people were all worked up, and then they sent out texts to Hispanics and to the LGBTQ community. These are our fellow Americans that we love to instill what? Fear. Listen, what have we talked about tonight? We've talked about the branches of our government. We've talked about an executive mandate. We've talked about Donald Trump won the presidency, and it was a GOP trifecta. It was across the board. He won the popular vote. He won everything. It was hands down. We're not perfect, and people get fearful, but I speak peace to us as Americans. And fear is real. And from a clinical perspective, I'm just trying to do what? Provoke thought, bring awareness, and us supporting each other together as Americans to embrace wellness and recovery. So, we've got an executive mandate. We spoke, we the people spoke. And as we move forward, I pray that this nation, we could come together as one. What would happen if we unite as the United States of America? Because we are one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As we go together, you and I, from destruction to dignity. I love you all. I appreciate you. Thank you for coming. We're going to keep plowing ahead because we're going somewhere. Yes, we are. And it's expecting us when we get there. If we unite, it is amazing what can happen to us in this great nation. I'll see you next week. Good night.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of From Destruction to Dignity with Janice Pons. Janice's mission is to provoke thought, bring awareness, and point people towards intervention when needed. As a reminder, this show is not therapy, but for educational purposes only. For more information, check out JanicePons.com or follow her on social media.
We are God empowered, strength is ours, liberty, been set free, education, affirmation, dedication, information, revelation.